Solitude is a paradox, feared by many, yet filled with transformative power when embraced. In the vastness of silence, we find ourselves, confronting both discomfort and the infinite possibilities that arise from introspection. The modern world, with its constant flow of stimuli and distractions, often prevents us from experiencing what solitude truly offers, a space where time seems suspended, where thought can wander freely, and the soul can rest. Far from being a sterile void, solitude is like fertile ground, ready to welcome the seeds of creativity and self-knowledge. When we consciously embrace this state, we find a path back to ourselves, to that silent point where creation and spirituality intertwine. In the stillness of being, we find the bridge between creation and connection with something greater than ourselves. This phrase invites us to see solitude not as a burden but as a portal to transcendence. True isolation is not a withdrawal from the world but a journey back to the center of our own essence, where creativity and connection with the divine become inseparable. Solitude is a blank canvas, an empty space that calls for creation. In the apparent void of solitude, something magical happens, ideas bloom, thoughts expand, and the invisible begins to take shape. Like a field that must rest before it can be cultivated, the mind needs silence and distance from distractions to allow creativity to germinate. Great masters of creation understood this. Leonardo da Vinci, often described as the archetype of the creative genius, was known for seeking moments of isolation to nurture his ideas. Virginia Woolf, in her writings, explored the importance of a room of one's own, a physical and mental space where creation could grow without interruptions. Beethoven, on the other hand, found in his deafness, the imposed solitude of the auditory world, a new way to connect with music, hearing, in his inner silence, the harmony of the spheres. Solitude offers a refuge from the cacophony of the external world. In times of constant digital connection, where notifications and messages bombard our attention, it's easy to lose sight of the creative depth that resides within us. Solitude allows us to disconnect from these distractions and return to our internal source of inspiration, where ideas can seemingly meet by chance and give rise to something new and surprising. This creative process, however, is not always comfortable. Often, the initial emptiness of solitude is frightening, but it is precisely in this discomfort that creativity develops. When we allow ourselves to dive into this idle space, mental barriers begin to dissolve, allowing the subconscious to work freely, associating thoughts and perceptions in unexpected ways. To experience this creative power of solitude, I propose a practical exercise. Take a few minutes of your day to step away from the external noise. Disconnect from the digital world and allow yourself to be silent. Don't seek to produce something immediately. Instead, let your mind wander. Just observe and see what arises from the apparent void. This quiet time is the fertile ground where the seeds of creativity can grow. Solitude is also a sacred space where the soul opens to the mystery of the divine. In various spiritual traditions, the act of being alone is seen as a path to self-knowledge and to the encounter with something greater. Jesus, after spending 40 days in the desert, sought solitude to strengthen his spirit. Buddha, in deep meditation under the fig tree, found enlightenment in the silence of his own mind. These examples show us that, in the absence of external distractions, we can more clearly hear the voice of the sacred that resonates within us. Silence, both external and internal, is the key to this spiritual connection. The constant noise of the modern world dulls our perception of the divine. When we step away from worldly demands and enter into silence, we create space for the encounter with the eternal. In the inner silence, where thoughts quiet down, we find profound clarity, a glimpse of the divine essence that permeates all things. The practice of solitude is, therefore, a purification ritual. By isolating ourselves from external chaos, we allow the layers of distraction that cover our consciousness to begin to dissipate. In this process, the true nature of our being, connected to the divine, emerges with greater clarity. Silence becomes a portal to the transcendent, a space where we can feel the presence of the divine more intensely and personally. Meditation is a practice that facilitates this plunge into inner silence. When we meditate, we silence not only the noises of the external world but also the internal storms of thoughts and emotions. It is in this state of stillness that we open ourselves to the divine, to the higher self that speaks in the softness of silence. Through the practice of mantras or simply observing the breath, we can cultivate this inner silence, allowing spiritual connection to flourish. I invite you to try a simple meditation exercise. Sit comfortably in a quiet place. Close your eyes and begin to observe your breath. Don't try to control it, just allow it to flow naturally. If thoughts arise, observe them without holding on to them. Gradually, silence will begin to fill the space. Remain in this state for 10 minutes daily, and observe how the inner silence deepens, bringing a sense of peace and spiritual connection. The practice of solitude not only nourishes creativity and spirituality separately but also unites them in a process of transcendence. Creating and connecting with the divine are two deeply intertwined acts, both requiring introspection, silence, and withdrawal from everyday distractions. Solitude, when consciously cultivated, acts as a bridge between these two worlds. The creative process becomes a form of meditation, while spiritual practice, in turn, can express itself creatively. In solitude, creativity ceases to be merely a mental effort and becomes a manifestation of the divine. Many artists and creators have reported that their greatest moments of innovation emerged from a profound state of spiritual connection. Beethoven, for example, while composing his monumental Ninth Symphony, was completely deaf and immersed in his own inner world. He transcended the suffering of deafness by composing something that seemed to capture the essence of the universe. His compositions were not merely the result of his technical skill but expressions of a state of spiritual ecstasy. Sacred works of art, such as the choral music of Johann Sebastian Bach or the Renaissance paintings of Michelangelo, are other examples of how the act of creation can be a transcendent experience. These creators saw their art not merely as intellectual production but as a way of expressing the divine, a response to spiritual inspiration they received in moments of introspection and solitude. Moreover, spiritual practice itself can generate a deep state of creativity. When we are in a state of meditation or prayer, our mind aligns with a higher frequency, allowing creative insights to emerge unexpectedly. This is the moment when we can access deeper truths about life and the universe, and these truths often manifest in the form of art. A poem written after deep meditation, a melody that arises during a spiritual retreat, or a drawing that reflects the introspection of a moment of solitude, all of these are examples of how the divine and the creative unite in the human experience. Art, therefore, can be seen as a form of prayer, a physical expression of the invisible. When we create, we are, in a way, giving shape to what is intangible, bringing to light that which dwells in the realm of spirit. Each creative act is an expression of the divine within us, a manifestation of the creative spark that connects us to something greater. When we understand this, our art becomes a spiritual offering, a way of connecting with the universe and expressing our deepest essence. Thus, solitude is not only a state of creation but also of revelation. In the practice of solitude, we refine our connection with our inner self and with the divine, opening space for deep insights. These moments of revelation are like flashes of wisdom that illuminate our perception and can be translated into art or creativity. This synergy between creation and spirituality allows us not only to create works that resonate with others but also to express something that transcends our personal experience, touching universal truths. As a practical exercise, I suggest that after a period of meditation or intentional quietude, you allow yourself to express what emerged during that time of introspection. Write a poem, draw an image, compose a melody, any form of expression that makes sense to you. Don't judge the result. Focus on the experience of turning spiritual insight into something tangible. This process is not about technical perfection, but about giving voice to your creative soul. While solitude can be transformative, it also brings challenges. One of the greatest obstacles we encounter when seeking moments of solitude is the initial discomfort that arises. For many, silence is frightening because it exposes the inner voices we typically drown out with day-to-day distractions. The fear of confronting our own thoughts can drive us away from the practice of being alone. This fear is natural, but it also opens a door to growth. When we face the discomfort of solitude, we begin to dissolve the internal barriers that prevent us from accessing our true selves. The resistance to silence often hides a deeper fear, the fear of seeing ourselves as we truly are. However, this confrontation with the self is the first step towards spiritual and creative transcendence. To overcome this initial discomfort, it's important to practice self-acceptance. Rather than fleeing from the thoughts and emotions that arise in solitude, we can embrace them with kindness. Deep breathing techniques and meditation can help calm the mind and reduce anxiety. It may also be helpful to keep a journal, noting the feelings and reflections that emerge during moments of solitude, turning this process into a practice of self-understanding. Persistence is essential. At first, it may be difficult to sustain the practice of solitude, but over time, discomfort gives way to clarity, and fear transforms into a deep sense of peace. It is in this continuity that the true magic of solitude reveals itself. Creativity and spirituality begin to flow more naturally, and our connection with the divine and with our creative self deepens. The practice of solitude nourishes both the creative mind and the spiritual soul. Silence and distance from external distractions create the perfect conditions for the emergence of creative and spiritual insights. Solitude thus becomes a portal to transcendence, where we become more aware of our own essence and more connected to the divine. Embrace solitude in your daily life. Find moments to disconnect from the outside world, whether through a few minutes of meditation, a quiet walk, or an artistic creation practice. When we do this, we discover that solitude is not a place of emptiness, but of fullness. We are, at the same time, the creator and the creation, the seeker and the sought. When we embrace solitude, we find within us the potential to create, to transcend, and to connect with the divine. The practice of solitude allows us to hear the music of silence and transform that sound into art, wisdom, and love.